Disruption. It's the buzzword that just won't die, is it?
It really won't.
You open LinkedIn, it's there. You read a company memo, it's there. Everyone is talking about navigating unprecedented times until, the word unprecedented starts to lose all meaning.
Right, it just becomes noise after a while.
But here is the thing that keeps me up at night, and I think it bothers a lot of people listening. We live in a world that is defined by constant, chaotic, nonlinear change. And yet, if you look at how the vast majority of organizations actually function, companies, nonprofits, even governments, they are still operating on strategic plans that assume a straight, predictable line into the future.
Oh, absolutely. The classic 5-year plan.
It feels a bit like trying to drive a Formula One car down a twisting track, but you are only looking in the rearview mirror.
That is a very apt analogy, and honestly, it's the perfect place to start because the source material we are looking at today, which is this massive, comprehensive stack of documents regarding the anticipation operating system, it identifies this exact problem. They call it the anticipation paradox.
Anticipation paradox. It sounds like a Robert Ludlum novel.
It does, doesn't it? But the concept is actually quite frightening for anyone in a leadership position.
How so?
The paradox is that detailed 5-year plans, the kind with the beautiful Gantt charts and the steady growth curves that go up and to the right, they actually create an illusion of control.
An illusion.
Exactly. They make organizations vulnerable because they lock you into a specific path. So when the world inevitably shifts, when that straight line curves or breaks or, goes backward, the plan becomes a prison.
A prison. Wow. That is a heavy image.
You're trapped in your own assumptions.
But it makes so much sense. If you represent to your board or your team that we will do X, then Y, then Z, and suddenly the market conditions for X just disappear, you are stuck. You're busy explaining why you failed instead of pivoting.
Right. The plan becomes a liability, not an asset.
But today isn't just about doom and gloom. We are looking at a stack of documents that propose a solution.
Yeah.
And I want to be clear to you listening. This isn't about buying a crystal ball.
No.
It's not about predicting the lottery numbers. It is about building a system.
Exactly. The goal here is to deconstruct how organizations can thrive in chaos. The mission statement across these documents, which, it's a huge stack. We have a practical roadmap, a lean operating system for implementation, case studies on robotics, and even software specifications. The whole works. And the mission is very specific. It is about moving from treating the future as something that happens to you to treating the future as something you can navigate.
I love that shift. Stop being a victim of the timeline. So we have a lot to get through. We have a roadmap for building this system. We have some really cool specific examples involving domestic robots. And we even have a fictional case study about a massive AI crisis in the UK that plays out like a techno-thriller.
It really does. And what's great about that case study is that it shows the mechanics of the system in action. It's not just theory.
So, okay, let's unpack this. We're talking about an operating system. That implies it's not just a meeting you have once a year. How do we actually build this? Where do we even start?
We start with the first phase of the core framework, explore. And specifically, it's about building an early warning system.
An early warning system.
The foundational concept here is something called horizon scanning.
Horizon scanning. It sounds like something a naval captain does from a crow's nest.
It's a similar principle. It's the practice of systematic intelligence gathering. Now, most people, when they think about staying informed, they think about reading the news, checking their stocks, maybe reading an industry trade journal.
Sure, the usual stuff.
But horizon scanning is much broader and much more disciplined. It's about tracking emerging signals of change across, everything. Technology, policy, economics, society, and the environment.
Okay, that sounds like a lot.
It is. And the key distinction you have to make here, and this is where most organizations fail, is distinguishing between strong signals and weak signals.
Strong versus weak signals. Okay, let's make this concrete.
Okay.
We have this fascinating document in our source stack titled Future of Robotics V2. It's a strategic foresight analysis for domestic robots. Can we use that to explain the difference?
Absolutely. It's a perfect example. So in the context of domestic robotics, a strong signal is something that is emerging right now. It is visible. It has momentum.
It's already happening.
It's already happening. For example, the existence of large language models like the ones powering the chatbots we all use every day, that is a strong signal. We know they work. We know they are scaling.
Okay.
Another strong signal is the development of humanoid robot platforms like Tesla's Optimus or the Boston Dynamics bots. These things exist physically. We can see them on YouTube. We know they are going to impact the field.
Right, they're already on the board. We might not know exactly how they play out, but we know they are in the game. It's present tense.
Exactly. Now, compare that to a weak signal. A weak signal is an early indicator. It's a blip on the radar that might become a dominant force, or it might just fizzle out.
Okay, so give me an example from the robotics doc.
In the robotics document, they list things like haptic feedback suits for remote control, or, and I love this one, biodegradable robot components.
Biodegradable robots. That sounds incredibly neat. Why would that be if you weren't? You are scrambling to redesign your entire product line while paying massive fines.
Precisely. You're seeing the wave before it crests. Strong signals tell you what the competition is doing. Weak signals tell you what the competition will be forced to do in 5 years.
That is a great distinction. But here is the problem I see, and I'm sure you listening are thinking this too. Data overload.
Of course.
If I'm scanning for everything from biodegradable plastic to haptic suits to interest rates to demographic shifts, I'm just going to drown in noise.
Yeah.
How do you organize all these signals? You can't just have a bucket of random facts.
That is where the PESTLE analysis comes in. It's a standard acronym: political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental. Now, I know what you're going to say.
I was going to say, I have seen PESTLE used in business school, and honestly, it usually feels like a checklist exercise.
Yeah.
Okay, politics check, economics check, let's move on to the real work.
And that is the trap. That is the compliance trap. In this anticipation operating system, PESTLE isn't a checklist, it's a collision chamber.
A collision chamber.
You use it dynamically to connect dots between categories. Let's go back to the robotics case. Under social, a lazy analysis might just say people might not like robots.
Right, very surface level.
But a deep dive, a real scan, looks at specific trends. The document highlights aging in place preferences versus institutional care.
Oh, that is interesting. So it's not just, do they like robots? It's, do they want to stay in their own homes as they age? And can robots enable that?
Precisely. Now, connect that social trend to the economic factor. The scan identifies a care economy labor shortage. We physically do not have enough human nurses to care for the booming elderly population.
We hear about that all the time.
So when you put those two together, people want to stay home and there aren't enough humans to help them, you suddenly see a massive structural opening for a specific type of robot.
Okay, now it's jumping off the page.
You are connecting the social desire with the economic reality. That's where the insight lives. It's in the intersection, not in the individual letters of PESTLE, but in how they crash into each other.
That makes the opportunity so much clearer. It moves it from tech gadget to societal necessity. But the documents also offer a warning here, don't they?
Yeah.
About the limits of this scanning.
Yes, and this is crucial for intellectual honesty. They are very clear about the unknown unknowns.
The Rumsfeld classic.
The classic. No methodology, no matter how sophisticated, can predict truly novel phenomena. If a meteor hits the Earth or a completely unprecedented scientific breakthrough happens overnight in a garage in Mumbai, you might miss it.
So it's not a crystal ball.
It is not a crystal ball. The goal of horizon scanning isn't to eliminate blind spots entirely. That's impossible. It's to reduce them significantly so you aren't blindsided by things you could have seen coming.
Okay, so we have scanned the horizon. We have collected our strong signals and our weak signals. We have mapped them out using PESTLE to find those intersections. Now we move to phase 2, envision.
Yes.
This is where we start actually talking about the future. And the documents use this visual called the futures cone.
The futures cone is a vital tool to visualize that the future isn't a single point. As you look further out in time, the cone widens. Inside that cone, you have different types of futures: the possible, the plausible, the probable, and the preferable.
I think our natural instinct, corporate instinct certainly, is to just focus on the probable, right? What is most likely to happen so we can build a budget around it.
Exactly. And that is where companies get into trouble. They pick the official future, the most likely one, and they bet the farm on it.
Which feels safe, but it's actually incredibly risky.
It's the riskiest thing you can do. The anticipation operating system requires you to build 3 to 4 distinct scenarios. You're not picking one, you are exploring the space between them. You need to stretch your brain.
So let's look at the scenarios from the robotics document again to illustrate this. They laid out 4, but 3 really stood out to me as distinct archetypes. First, there was the incremental helper.
Right, this is the probable scenario, the default future. In this world, robotics technology improves, but it's evolutionary, not revolutionary. Robots remain appliances. They vacuum the floor, maybe they mow the lawn, but they are essentially dumb machines.
A better Roomba.
Exactly. And if you are a company planning for only this future, you are focusing entirely on cost reduction and battery life. You're building a better Roomba. That's your entire strategy.
Okay, then there is the trusted companion scenario. This sounds like the preferable future, or at least the Silicon Valley dream.
This is the high-tech vision. Here, AI has advanced to the point where robots are household members. They are integrated into the smart home ecosystem. They understand natural language. They can anticipate your needs.
So it's like Rosie the robot from the Jetsons.
Pretty much. They are helping Grandma take her meds and playing games with the kids. This requires a totally different tech stack complex, natural language processing, emotional recognition, deep cloud integration, a whole different ballgame.
And then the buzzkill scenario. Stalled dystopia. And reading this one, it felt uncomfortably plausible.
It really does. This is the cautionary future. Imagine a high-profile accident where a robot injures a child, or a massive hack where bad actors take over cameras in people's homes.
Oh, that's terrifying.
Public trust collapses instantly. Regulations clamp down, maybe banning cameras and domestic robots entirely. The market effectively dies or goes underground.
It's grim, but it's a possibility. You have to consider it. And they also mention black swan exercises within these scenarios. I love this concept, but I feel like black swan gets thrown around to mean anything bad.
You're right. It's often misused. A true black swan is a low-probability, high-impact event that is often rationalized in hindsight. The document lists things like a sudden breakthrough in artificial general intelligence, AGI.
The singularity.
Right, which changes the game overnight. Or a massive cyber attack on home robots. The exercise isn't to predict when it happens, but to ask, okay, assume this unlikely thing just happened, what do we do?
And this is where the rubber meets the road for me. Why did this matter? Why write these science fiction stories? Is it just for entertainment? The document uses the phrase strategic optionality.
That is a key phrase. If you remember nothing else from this deep dive, remember strategic optionality.
Okay.
If you only plan for the trusted companion future, where everyone loves robots and the stalled dystopia happens, you go bankrupt. Your product is illegal or unwanted.
Game over.
But if you have planned for both, you have options. You have thought about what features might work in a low-trust environment versus a high-trust one. You aren't scrambling, you're just switching tracks.
Which leads us perfectly into part 2, design and deliver. Because it is one thing to have these cool stories in a binder, but the question is always, so what?
The so what question.
Exactly. What do I do differently today because I imagined a robot uprising in 2035?
Right. This brings us to opportunity framing and risk mapping. The goal is to let these futures dictate your product features today. Let's look at the robotics prioritization matrix in the source. They broke down features not by what's cool, but by which stakeholder dominates the future.
Walk us through that.
Okay, so if the feature is driven by aging adults, that demographic shift we talked about, the aging in place trend, then your killer features aren't playing fetch or cleaning windows.
No.
The killer features are fall detection and medication management, things that directly address the core needs of that future.
But if the future is driven by dual-income families who are just time poor, the killer feature is time recovery, laundry, deep cleaning, meal prep.
Exactly. Different futures demand different products. But here is the magic trick. Robust strategies.
Okay, I like the sound of that.
You look for the opportunities or technologies that exist across all or most of your scenarios.
The safe bets.
The smart bets. In the robotics analysis, they found that whether robots are companions or just appliances, and whether the user is an aging senior or a busy parent, two things are always required: edge AI and dexterous manipulation.
Let's break those down. Edge AI means processing data on the robot itself, not in the cloud, right? Why is that a robust strategy?
Because it works in every scenario. In the trusted companion scenario, Edge AI makes the robot faster and more responsive because it doesn't have to talk to a server.
That makes sense.
But in the stalled dystopia scenario, where privacy is the main concern and people don't trust the cloud Edge AI keeps the data local and secure, it's a killer feature for privacy.
So investing in Edge AI pays off no matter which future happens.
You got it.
And dexterous manipulation just means having hands that work.
Right. If you can't pick up a cup or fold a shirt, you aren't useful to a senior or a busy parent. It's a foundational capability. So if you invest in those two technologies, Edge AI and good hands, you are winning in almost any future. That is a robust strategy.
That is really clarifying.
Yeah.
You don't have to guess the future to be prepared for it.
You don't have to guess the winning lottery number if you buy a ticket that pays out on almost every number.
Love that.
Yeah.
But then we hit phase 4, deliver, and the document mentions the innovation theater trap.
This is where most organizations fail. It's the valley of death for good ideas.
What is it?
They do the scanning, they build the scenarios, they have a great off-site meeting with sticky notes and whiteboards, and then they go back to the office and do exactly what they were doing before.
Oh, I've lived this.
The scenarios sit in a binder on a shelf. It was just theater. It felt like work, but it changed nothing.
Great workshop, guys. Now back to the spreadsheets. So how do we avoid that? How do we make it real?
The primary tool is backcasting.
Backcasting. Okay.
Instead of forecasting forward from today, which usually just results in last year plus 10%, you stand in your preferred future, say 2035, and you work backwards.
You start at the end.
You start at the end. To be there in 2035, what must we have achieved by 2030? To hit that, what must we launch by 2027? To launch that, what must we fund today in 2026? It creates a direct, logical chain between the long-term vision and today's budget.
To illustrate this delivery phase, the source material includes a really detailed fictional case study called The Great Unwinding.
Yes.
It's about a UK AI initiative. The story was wild. It really showed the difference between a rigid plan and an anticipatory one.
It's a perfect example. So here is the setup. It's 2025. The UK government launches a massive £5 billion initiative to build 3 huge centralized AI data centers. The goal is AI sovereignty.
Okay.
They want to compete with the US and China.
Standard big government project, huge budget, massive infrastructure, rigid linear timeline. We will cut the ribbon in 2028.
Exactly. But then in September 2026, a black swan hits, or really a collision of events.
Yeah.
There is a global financial crash, the Great Unwinding, which causes a sovereign debt crisis. At the same time, energy prices spike because of market volatility.
So suddenly, the government has no money to borrow, and the cost to power these massive centralized data centers just tripled.
Triple.
In normal organization, what happens?
Panic. Total panic. The budget is slashed. They cancel the project. It becomes a white elephant. Billions in some costs, political embarrassment, and the UK loses its AI capability entirely.
Right, that's the reactive path.
That is the reactive path.
But in the case study, they had an anticipatory system running. So what do they do differently?
18 months prior, their horizon scanning had picked up weak signals, rising debt in emerging markets and volatility in energy futures. They hadn't predicted the crash exactly. You can't predict the date of a crash, but they had developed a financial crisis scenario.
They had a playbook on the shelf.
They had strategic optionality. Because they had considered a future where capital was tight and energy was expensive, they had pre-developed a pivot strategy.
A plan B.
A fully formed plan B. Instead of building 3 giant, power-hungry, centralized data centers, they pivoted to an edge compute model.
Distributed nodes, smaller, cheaper, local?
Right, much more resilient, and they activated energy partnerships where private companies took on the energy risk in exchange for long-term contracts.
So they turned a disaster into a new model.
They turned a crisis into a resilient AI infrastructure. They saved the program, preserved the strategic value, and arguably built a better, more modern system because they were forced to adapt.
That's incredible.
But the key is they didn't make that decision in a panic in September 2026. They made the decision to prepare for it in 2025. They bought themselves decision time.
That is the superpower. Decision time. When everyone else is freezing, you're executing plan B.
Yeah.
Okay, so this all sounds amazing. Robots, resilient AI networks.
Mm-hmm.
But I can hear a listener thinking, I run a mid-sized company. Or I manage a department. I don't have 5 billion pounds. I can't hire a team of futurists.
And that is a valid concern. It's a huge one. But the Lean Anticipatory Operating System document addresses this directly. It explicitly says you do not need a department of futurists.
No.
In fact, scaling too big too fast is a trap. It just creates a silo that no one listens to. Oh, that's the futures team. Let them do their weird stuff over there.
So how do we do it lean?
You start with a 90-day sprint.
Okay.
You don't try to change the whole company culture overnight. You pick one major upcoming decision. Maybe it's a budget allocation, a new product launch, or a key hire.
Just one decision.
Just one. And you spend 90 days scanning signals and framing scenarios specifically for that decision. The goal is to prove value quickly. If you can show that using this process saved money or opened a new opportunity for that decision, you get buy-in to do it again.
It's an MVP, a minimum viable product for strategy.
That's exactly what it is.
I like that. Start small, win big. The sources also talk about augmentation. How do we augment our teams to do this? Because, I mean, scanning the whole world takes a lot of time.
It breaks down into people, process, and technology. On the people side, I really like the concept of the scenario translator.
Is that a job title? A futurist.
It's more of a role. This isn't a full-time futurist. This is someone already in your HR department or your tech team or finance. But they are trained to translate signals for their specific team.
Ah, so they're the person in the meeting who says...
Exactly. They're the one who says, hey, I saw this weak signal about regulatory changes. How does that impact our hiring plan? Or this new tech trend, what does it mean for our Q4 budget?
So you are embedding the capability, not isolating it in an ivory tower.
You're distributing it. And then there are adversarial red teams.
Sounds intense.
Yes. Dedicated contrarians. Their job is to poke holes. When everyone is nodding along to the happy path plan, the red team is paid to ask, what if this fails? What if a competitor does X?
So they institutionalize critical thinking.
Then you don't drink your own Kool-Aid.
Now, let's geek out on the technology for a second. We have this software requirement specification document in this deck. It's surprisingly technical, and it describes a system that sounds incredible. It talks about using AI for horizon scanning.
This is where the technology augmentation gets really powerful. The SRS describes an AI agent that scans 20,000 sources, Bailey News, patents, academic papers, social media. It uses natural language processing to detect anomalies.
20,000 sources. No human can do that. That solves the data overload problem we talked about earlier.
Exactly. It solves the noise problem. But what's really cool is the domain adaptation. The AI changes its lens based on what it is looking at.
What do you mean by that?
If it's scanning for healthcare, it prioritizes FDA filings and medical journals. If it shifts to robotics, it looks at GitHub repositories and engineering forums. It tailors the weak signal detection to the specific industry.
That is huge. It's like having a specialized research assistant for every topic.
An army of them, working 247.
And then finally, the process augmentation. We touched on this with the UK case study, but it's worth repeating. Trigger-based reviews.
This is the most practical tool in the box. You pre-commit to action. You say, if indicator XA, the price of lithium hits price Y, we automatically execute strategy Z.
It takes the emotion out of it.
Completely. In a crisis, people freeze. Or they deny the reality, oh, the price spike is just temporary.
It'll come back down.
Right. But if you have a trigger-based review, the decision is already made. The trigger fired. We move. It removes the paralysis.
I want to move to part 4 because there is a tricky question here. We're talking about avoiding disasters and seizing opportunities. But in the corporate world, everything runs on ROI, return on investment. How do you measure the ROI of a disaster that didn't happen?
That is the measurement paradox. It is the hardest part of this field. You can't easily put avoided bankruptcy on a quarterly spreadsheet. If you successfully avoid a crisis, it looks like nothing happened.
And your boss says,
why did we spend money preparing for that? It was fine.
Right. It's the Y2K effect. Everyone worked hard to fix it, nothing happened, and then everyone said, wasn't that a hoax?
Exactly. So how do we solve this?
Yeah.
The documents suggest moving away from lagging indicators like quarterly profit for this specific system and using leading indicators. One is decision velocity. Did we make the decision faster? In the UK case, they pivoted in weeks, not years, because they had the plan ready. That speed has a monetary value, a huge one.
Okay, that makes sense.
Another metric is portfolio resilience. Are our investments safe if the market flips? You can stress test your portfolio against your scenarios and give it a score.
So you're measuring preparedness, not just outcome.
Yes. And there was one more metric I found fascinating. The near-miss documentation system.
Yes. This is brilliant.
You have to track the events that could have hurt the company but didn't. You write it down. Supplier X went bankrupt in Q3. We didn't suffer a delay because our scenario planning led us to qualify a backup supplier 6 months ago.
You have to document the save.
You have to document the save. That becomes your ROI proof.
It's like a safety save log in a factory, but for strategy. It makes the invisible visible.
Exactly.
This has been a massive download. I mean, we've gone from biodegradable robots to government AI crises to AI agents scanning 20,000 news sites.
Yeah.
As we wrap up, what is the big takeaway for you? What's the mindset shift?
I think it comes back to the metaphor of the weather. Most organizations act like a weather vane.
A weather vane.
They spin around whichever way the wind blows. They are reactive. They feel the disruption and they turn.
And we want to be.
We want to be a weather station. A weather station doesn't stop the storm. It sees the pressure dropping. It sees the humidity rising. It predicts the storm is coming.
It sees the signals.
It sees the signals. And because it sees it coming, it can batten down the hatches, or even better, it can set the sails to capture the wind. The organizations that master this don't just survive disruption, they shape it.
They shape it.
They move from exploration, just looking at cool trends, to institutionalization, where foresight becomes muscle memory.
Muscle memory, I like that. It's not something you do once a year at a retreat. It's just how you move.
Exactly.
So, for everyone listening, here's my challenge to you. Look for your own weak signals this week. Maybe it's a weird new competitor, strange clause in a contract, or a new habit your kids have picked up. Don't ignore it. Ask yourself, if this weak signal became a strong signal in 5 years, what would I wish I had done today? Because the future isn't written, but it is being signaled.
Well said.
That is it for this deep dive into the Anticipation Operating System. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you in the future.